I like to say, make yourself comfortable without demanding perfect comfort. I'll say that again. Make yourself comfortable without demanding perfect comfort. Because often what causes us added discomfort is this demand that things be the way that we want them to be. And I don't know about you, but have you noticed that life is often not that way? Life is as it is. And anytime we argue with that, we create suffering. And the Buddha talked about the two arrows. He talked about, life is inherently challenging. There's a lot of beauty in life, but there's also a lot of challenge, yes? And we sure know this right now in the midst of this, challenging time. And, life certainly is presenting us, on a daily basis, likely, with things that don't suit us, that we wish were different. And so when we argue or we resist, or we somehow believe that it shouldn't be painful or it shouldn't be challenging, we add what the Buddha referred to as the second arrow, which is suffering. He said, or I don't think he said this actually, or maybe he did, but you might have heard this. Pain is part of life, right? But suffering is optional. And so I think it's useful to distinguish between these two things, that there is pain, we can't avoid it. Inherent to our life is pain and challenge. And when we believe in some way that our inner pain is wrong, or that the outer, pains that we experience externally are wrong, then that's suffering. I'm angry. I shouldn't be angry. I'm shouldn't is the suffering. And so with that, I just invite us all to relax as we are. So I started out by saying, be comfortable, but don't demand perfect comfort. These bodies, there's areas that you'll experience even right now as comfortable, being maybe relatively at ease. There might be parts of your body that are uncomfortable. And there's lots of parts of the body that are neutral, like the insides of the ears or the insides of the fingers. Right now I'm experiencing some tension in my shoulders, right? So that's kind of unpleasant. And there's this pleasant feeling of being seated. And so I encourage us all to allow whatever's here to be here. Even if you don't like it, it can still be here. And so knowing this experience that you're having right now is mindfulness. We have our experience, and also knowing that we're having this experience is awareness, is mindfulness. And then we can sense as we are right now, how can I be like 5 or 10% more at ease? Or can I be 5 or 10% more at ease? And just notice if there's a little more ease available to you with that invitation. Really coming all the way into this body. As we come all the way into this body, we start to fill this body with our awareness. We become more present because the body's always here. And we can make the decision right now. Well, first there's often this sense of, that's right, I have a body. Oh, that's right, I have a body. This is what it feels like for me to be in my body. This is what it feels like for me to be, not just a talking head. There's a different sense of self when we come all the way into this body. And then we can soften, as I invited you earlier, to be at ease. Just right now, no matter what problems you're facing, there can be a deeper ease that's available when you just ask the question, is there 5 or 10% more ease? This ease isn't based on conditions or circumstances being any particular way. It's sort of a choosing. And then a tethering of the attention towards the breath as we resolve, as we activate a sense of aspiration. We also activate our commitment to our practice and this relinquishment of thinking. We decide right from the beginning of our sit, this is the time where I will not be actively engaged in the usual patterns of the thinking mind, whether it be rehearsing, right? We like to rehearse, how we're going to be or what we're going to do or what we're going to say. There's something that you're rehearsing in your mind, and you can just relinquish that. This isn't the time for rumination. And so we can't help but have thoughts. Thoughts will happen, but we're deciding right from the beginning of our sit that we will not engage in thinking. So shoring up the heart in that way. And aspiring for, towards this path is what is called the sure heart's release. That we're anchoring into something steady and ever available, and that is the moment at hand. And so we devote, ourselves to simply being right here and right now. And we begin with a tethering of the attention to the breath. So awareness of the felt sense of the inhale and the exhale, not focusing or concentrating on the breath, but keeping it inside of your awareness as your primary anchor, more than thought, even more than sensation in the body. We begin with the breath.
Industry, okay? The best way to figure this out, here's a real quick, easy, simple pro tip. Go find another summit that's been done in a similar vector or in your industry and look what they're charging. That's the easiest way to quickly do that. Otherwise, look at what are the normal sales? What would be considered a tripwire sale? What would be considered a low ticket sale? What would be considered high ticket in your industry? That's how you can start to price structure what you should do on your summit. Because your summit is essentially a low-tiered, a low-priced promotion, essentially. So that it's not supposed to be a high ticket, it's not supposed to be medium, it's supposed to be more lower. Not tripwire low, but a lower price point. Matthew says, don't think
we can all hear something.
Live streaming or just a virtual summit, but huge
Susan Hill, your audio is on.
In my industry. So that's cool. Oh. Yeah, I mean, here's
And just allowing awareness to sink, trusting in the sinking of awareness down, feeling ground, heaviness of bones, especially if you felt really in your head. Become deeply aware of the way the legs feel against the chair and the feet against the floor, or the legs against the ground. Feeling stability of legs. No need to effort. No need to fix your inner experience. Just allowing the breath to support whatever this experience is. And we understand as part of our practice, the attention will leave the breath. There'll be some story that hooks our attention. No problem. Just come back to the breath. And now feeling into the blood and bones of this body. The sensations of this body. And sensing how it is to just hold these two aspects in our awareness, the breath and the body, with all of its sensations, both pleasant and unpleasant. All of it belongs. And it can be helpful if you notice that you've tightened up to just relax, relax. And relaxing any inner evaluation. That inner evaluator that's doubting if you're doing it right or wants to hold on to anything that's feeling good. Oftentimes it's just this inner voice that's evaluating our performance. We're often not living up to its expectations. Being aware of that voice as well. Staying closer to the felt sense, just relax. There may be emotions that you're experiencing. Before I pressed play, I was angry. I was very angry at some things that hadn't gotten done. And now I'm noticing in my heart, I feel regret for taking my anger out on my family. And I'm just being really vulnerable here with you because I deeply, deeply want you to experience yourself with honesty and with compassion. So the anger isn't here for me anymore. There's more a sadness in my heart and a gratitude for this practice, but you might be experiencing emotions, anxiety, contentment, peace, restlessness, worry, joy. All of it belongs. What are you feeling? How is your heart? So allowing there to be this compassionate relationship with your emotional world. You can always come back to the breath if you need to shore up your attention again. And you don't need to stop the impressions, the images that come into your awareness. Just notice those images and those impressions. Before we give words to them, they're wordless. We call them thoughts. They're often bound up with an emotion. You don't have to stop them from arising. You can just give that up. You might practice being aware of the images. Just staying closer to the breath and the sensations in the body. And if there's a particular impression that keeps drawing the attention away from this moment, it can be useful to just ask, what's the emotion here? Is it anxiety? What is the emotion under this rehearsing that I keep doing, or these thoughts I keep having about this person? It's like, let yourself connect to the heart, how the heart's feeling as you relax. As we come to the last 5 minutes or so of our sit. spending these last couple of minutes just sensing what most needs your kindness and your care, or what most needs kindness and care. And notice what arises for you. Within, what in your life most needs kindness and care. Maybe even just allowing yourself to embody in some way this kindness and care. Yes, may I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I feel safe and free from inner and outer harm. May I be truly, truly happy. May I be healthy. May I be filled with a well-being that is not bound by circumstances or conditions. You can make yourself comfortable. And if your eyes are open, or closed, you can blink them open. And if you like, thank you for those of you who are on camera. That's awesome. If you don't want to be on camera, that's okay too. I respect that. If you are okay with being on camera, that's wonderful. I really love that. So I can see your face. Then let yourself orient to your space. Orienting to your space, just looking around the room that you're in and just sensing, okay, this is actually what's happening right now, can be helpful in closing this gap. The gap, what's the gap? Well, now I'm going to start our talk, right? We're going to explore the ground of true faith and also explore this practice of unhooking from doubt, in particular hindering doubt, which is different from questioning doubt. But and I'll move into that now. But in the service of closing the gap, and we could say the gap is, there's how it is right now, and there's how we think it should be. Okay, and we can mean that about our insides, how we are right now, as opposed to how we think we should be. We can also say this about life outside of ourselves, right? There's how it is, and then there's how we think it should be. And however big that gap is the measure of our suffering. That's why we emphasize presence, because it is indeed the only sane place to live. Now, this does not mean that we don't work towards change. It doesn't mean that when we see something that isn't right or that isn't just, we don't do everything we can to deal with that. That's not at all what I'm saying here. It's not, we get confused with acceptance. Radical acceptance is indeed a huge part of our path to peace. Acceptance does not mean indifference, nor does it mean I like it and I'm okay with it and I'm just gonna, so that's not what it means. It means, okay, this is how it is. And I'm gonna cease fighting how it is, because fighting how it is in the sense that I'm at war with how it is. I believe it should be it shouldn't be this way, creates suffering. And so a lot of this work is around, closing that gap. And, and then that it does not mean, taking care of problems as they arise. So given that, the first piece I wanted to speak to around both, doubt, unhooking from doubt, unhooking from hindering doubt, and connecting to true faith, which is conditionless, right? Is true confidence. True confidence. And so I wanted to read this to you from a book by Sharon Salzberg called Loving Kindness. It's a great book. And I've read it many times. And I'm reading it again. And I thought this was something really spoke to me, and I hope it speaks to you. Of course, my bookmark wasn't in the place that I had thought it was. So I'm going to find what I wanted to read to you here. Thank you for your patience. Okay, here we go. Rather than obsessively following states of mind, such as anger, fear, or grasping, states that will bring harm to ourselves and others, we can let go as though dropping a burden. We are indeed burdened by carrying around habitual, unskillful reactions. As wisdom reveals to us that we don't need these reactions, we can abandon them. Cultivating the good means recovering the incandescent power of love that is present as a potential in all of us. An awakened life demands a fundamental revisioning of the limited views we hold of our own potential. And I'll read that again. An awakened life demands a fundamental revisioning of the limited views we hold for our potential. To say that we cultivate the good means that we align ourselves with an expansive vision of what is possible for us. And we use the tools of spiritual practice to sustain our real moment to moment experience of that vision. Vision is vital for us at this time. To release the incessant habit we have of trying to control life, and to instead devote ourselves to a wholesome cultivation of the heart's inherent capacity to be at ease, to be at peace, to be joyful, regardless of circumstances or conditions. And to think that by emphasizing the external and trying to control the external, we will be able to create a life that suits us is delusion. It's delusion, because there are so many things obviously in this environment, right? I mean, COVID, social unrest, the economic weirdness. It's like a very lumpy economy. It's so bizarre that the stock market, I'm like, this is so weird that my 403B is like, it's inflated in some ways. I think I'm not a financial expert by any stretch, but it's just bizarre. Anyway, there's just a lot happening externally outside of our control. And whenever we think life should suit us and we try to make life up in such a way that suits us, we suffer. You know, life is as it is in any given moment that it's arising. Our reactivity, being reactive, means I am like trying to fit life as it is into the way that I think it should be, as opposed to being responsive to life, right? When we're, it's like in Aikido, which is a form of martial arts, the emphasis is more on tuning into the opponent and being centered in oneself, so that you're connected to your inherent capacity to respond to the opposition, and in that way defend yourself. So it's this, or it's like surfing, right? A surfer knows that, you know, if you're expecting the wave to be, you know, a particular way, like imagine that you're going out into the water going, okay, I want this like 5-foot wave and it should look like this and be like this, and I should catch it right about here. And this is how we live life, though, if we're really like paying attention. And it causes us so much suffering. We should be this certain way. They should be this certain way, right? And so in practice, we practice, you know, we're practicing dropping those preconceived notions and seeing God as this moment. And if that languaging doesn't work for you, then drop it. But seeing the divine, the infinite, the incomprehensible arising of this moment, it's really unfathomable, right? We are like a little particle of dust, you know, like whirling around a universe that's far beyond our comprehension, how vast it is, right? It's like we are part of something truly, you know, like wise and, you know, compassionate, but beyond our limited understanding, and yet we are a part of it at the same time, you know. So there is this not confidence in life working out the way we want it to, but confidence in our capacity to be with life in a way that does not add to our suffering, and that does in fact cultivate our capacity to be deeply happy. And I want to differentiate this from the emotion of happy, right? There's the emotion that comes and goes. All emotions come and go. we only want to feel the good ones. And what that does is it keeps us from feeling anything but anxiety, right? A lot of times when I start working with people, with my clients, that's the predominant emotion, anxiety. They come to me because they're feeling this kind of existential angst, right? This anxious quiver of being. And because we have a long time ago, babies and little kids, like little kids, don't have a problem emoting and being their emotions. But we learn along the way that certain emotions are good and certain emotions are bad. And then we just shut off to all of them. And so we're perpetually in the trance of, I'm going to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get there. When I get there, yeah, then I'll be happy. When I get that, whatever it is, then I'll be happy. When COVID is over, then I'll be happy. You know, when whatever your there is, I really want us to get at this point in our life. Life should, at this point, have shown us well enough that that's BS. There is no there to get to. We don't know how much life we have. We do know that every breath is one breath less. And so if we hold off on bringing our whole hearts forward, if we're spending our life holding back, and part of holding back is hindering doubt. Part of holding back is second guessing ourselves all the time. And here I'm moving into talking about doubt. Hindering doubt, questioning doubt is healthy. Questioning doubt is like, that doesn't like make sense to me. Can you clarify that? You know, questioning doubt is questioning something. You know, the Buddha talked about, I forget the Pali term, but it was like, see for yourself. So there was nothing that was presented inside of the teachings that we were ever asked to believe. It was always like, no, see for yourself, you know? And then you see. So there's an emphasis on our, not our belief, but on our knowing. So inside of every being, inside of you, inside of me, is this inherent capacity to know the truth. Our inherent capacity to know who we are before we have a thought about ourselves. And when we taste this knowing, some people have called it enlightenment, but I'll say enlightenment is a living enlightenment, that there's no state that you reach, not even the Buddha reached a state that was like free from emotional turmoil, right? We don't get rid of anger, as I brought up. I've been practicing for 20 years and I had the most ridiculous blow up this morning. I'm saying ridiculous and I have so much compassion for myself, you know, but I look at it now and I go, wow, I really kind of lost my center and I blew up, right? At my, you know, my whole family. I'll go back and repair, but it doesn't mean that we don't have anger and that we don't act out of it sometimes, right? I've been practicing for a long time. This stuff still gets me, but I come out of it faster and our relationship to challenging emotional states change with practice. So there is a knowing that we can access where we really know who we are even beyond emotions. That we know who we are beyond thoughts. We know the divine within through practice. We can come to this knowing. And so let me unpack a little bit more what I mean by hindering doubt. There's the doubt that you have in yourself. You know what I mean? Do you ever have this feeling of like, you just don't feel like you're good enough? You know, you just don't feel like you're good enough. You come into a group, maybe it's a new group of people you've never been with before. Or you come into a different context in your life, like there's a place of where you're not comfortable and this doubt comes up and that inner evaluator comes up that I mentioned in the sit, you know, that's like, oh, you know, comparing yourself. When you get lost in comparing yourself to others, that's hindering doubt. It keeps us stuck. It keeps us stagnant. It keeps us from opening our hearts and moving forward. It has us hold back. We can take this hindering doubt. We can doubt marriages we've been in for 20 years. What was that? Is this the right person for me to be with? I have clients, you know, I have a client who I'm thinking of, oh God, she's been married for so long. And she has hindering doubt around her marriage. You know, and it's like she's coming to me to be more at peace in her life. And part of my work with her is in closing that gap. Look, choose your choice. You know, choose him. Choose him. He's a good guy. You know, he's a good guy. You guys have been together a long time, been through a lot. You're not leaving him clearly. You're still here. Why don't you bring your heart where your body is? You already made the choice in your actions, right? So hindering doubt can keep us not fully committing to the life we've chosen, right? We think our kids should be some other way, so we don't really love them as they are because we're always trying to fit them into the self-improvement project, you know? Oh, well, it could be better. I fall into this sometimes too, you know? And so these are examples of hindering doubt, you know, just never feeling like good enough. I was talking to a client the other day who she's a writer, she's a published writer, and she still doesn't feel like she's a writer. And I helped her just unhook from this whole concept of being a writer, because no one's a writer, no one's a mother, these labels can sometimes hinder our full expression. I'm like, why don't you just be you, sitting at a desk and putting words on a page, rather than trying to fit it into this grand idea you have of a writer, because you're missing it in that hindering doubt, believing that we're not good enough, believing that we're somehow broken, believing that our life is somehow broken. This is the way hindering doubt shows up in our lives. And it can make us anxious about our choices, wondering if we've made the right one. It gives us this deep sense that we are, or life is flawed. It's not right as it is. Okay. And so the reason I talk about this so explicitly and I try to give examples is so we can close the gap. You can see yourself in this, right? And that I want you to notice that when I name something that's true for you, the clearer I can be in the naming of it, you might notice in your own body like a relief, maybe. Why is that? Well, it's because this is mindfulness, so subtle, but it's in just the clear seeing of what's arising. Oftentimes we think doubt, hindering doubt, and is what I'm speaking of here, is truth. It masquerades as truth. It masquerades sometimes as like a wise sage, trying to fiddle and fix and correct everything so it fits into our version of how we think it should be. But we can never escape the first noble truth, or the first chapter in A Road Less Traveled. You know, I bring this up a lot, but it was like the first personal growth book I ever read. Chapter 1, life is painful. Sounds like a big downer, but if we don't talk about that, we'll never be free. If we think life should be comfortable all the time, we'll never be free. What we're seeking is freedom, right? When we're free to experience the ups and downs of life without being guarded, because what we do is we guard our hearts. We're so hyper vigilant, and then the external world is like it's either ripe with opportunity or it's ripe with threat. So we have a nervous systems that can feel very, we have these very tender hearts and these tender nervous systems. And we really have to understand that about ourselves so that we can, this mindfulness, this awareness of, it's normal to experience some amount of trepidation when we enter into new experiences, for example. That's the normal reaction to this nervous system, this nervous system that is, tuned into opportunity or threat in the external world. We're animals, we have an animal body, as Mary Oliver said. She said, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your hands and knees for 1,000 miles through the desert repenting. You only need to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And, at the same time, it's wholesome to experience regret when we do something that's out of alignment with our values, with our truth, with our hearts, which was my example from this morning. So when I feel the regret of my anger and the way I expressed it, that's wholesome. I wouldn't want it any other way. So it has me making repair, and keeping the relationships with my family strong. And there's also a part of my heart that's mended in that. So know, along with this true confidence in our capacity to be deeply happy, that was number 1. I always talk about 3 points. Number 2, know when your doubt is hindering. So we want to get even better at knowing when we're kind of caught in doubt, right? So notice when you're comparing, notice when you're judging, notice when you're believing that you should be, or life should be some other way. Notice when you're, start to become more familiar with doubt in this way. And by doing that, we create more space. We can never be rid of it. The Buddha and the myth of the Buddha and the stories of the Buddha, this happened with Christ too, right? On the cross, or forget if he was on the cross when he said, "Why have you forsaken?" like he was pleading, like asking God, like, why? You know, like, why? We all go through these moments of doubt. It's part of the human, it's part of being human. We want to be aware of it. We want to notice it. You know, sometimes when I get into a new group of people, if I'm in a class or something like that, or I was just came off of a meditation retreat and there are all these new people, you know, I would come together with everyone. I came together and I had this kind of trepidation. And then when I would share, doubt would come up. Oh, you weren't clear enough, or, you know, whatever, like, boy, and then the inner critic too. It's like, wow, you're a meditation teacher and, you know, you're like fumbling with your words. You keep saying all the time. That's the inner critic within. I'm aware of that. I can notice that and choose not to feed it out of my deep desire for freedom. And this is like the heart's compassion. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before we close is letting go. So letting go isn't something we do. It's something that happens when we're able to let something be. So when we let things be, just a simple naming of like, wow, this is what's happening right now. I'm really angry with my husband right now. Anger is here, right? I wish I would have been that skillful a little earlier today, but I wasn't. Anger came in and it just took me. I was like, then I was anger and I acted out of anger, right? So this is not a perfection project at all, but letting go happens when we can really let be. So it's in seeing these parts of ourselves and of life that we've closed our hearts to, and through these practices, you know, we can learn to open the heart to them, to see them, and then letting go just happens naturally. And then we can let in, you know, this aspiration quality. So aspiring, knowing what our aspirations are, and unhooking aspiration from being set in some future moment, but bringing the future self into present moment time. So if I have an aspiration to be, to have a deeply connected family, then I need to not, you know, be focused on the future, but pull that into this moment and sense, okay, well, what's my aspiration then now? What does more connection look like, feel like, taste like now? What are the next words that are going to come out of my mouth? So we pull that future aspiration into present moment time. So just a little recap of the talk on true confidence and the unhooking from hindering doubt. The first is, again, true confidence is really trusting in our capacity to do this. You really can be free. You really can. And I want you to sense how it would feel if you really trusted that. You really trusted that you can be free. Number two, knowing when hindering doubt is present. So just this awareness, like kind of like looking at doubt like a scientist, noticing how it operates in your life, catching it when it's operating. And then number three, letting go. So being willing to let go of the stories, like the limitations, the stories that we tell ourselves, and we tell ourselves about ourselves and about life when we're hooked in more unwholesome heart mind states, like anger. You know, we can just ask, what am I telling myself about myself, or about life, or about, you know, start to question. That can help us let go. And again, by letting be, letting go happens naturally. Last, I want to say this is that by being here, you're practicing faith. It's not anything that you aren't already. Okay, so just by being here, by listening to this talk, by sitting in meditation for 20 minutes, you are practicing faith. Whenever we return our attention back to this moment, that requires some effort, some intention. So that practice, so think of faith as a practice. It's a verb, it's not a noun. Just like love, it's a verb, it's not a noun. We practice faith by, you know, by tuning into our inner experience, and rather than focusing externally on fixing everything, we go inside and we work on this like releasing and letting in and tuning in, and some of the things that I talked about, for example, in this talk. That is the practice of faith. Faith is not a noun, it's a verb. So it's time for us to close. As I close, I would just like to remind us that these talks and these meditations are freely offered, and your donations really matter. So you can donate to me. I'm on PayPal, Zelle, what's the other one? Venmo, and you can do that. As we close, I'd love if some of you could, oh, Shannon had to leave. Go ahead and type into the chat what your takeaway is. What are you taking with you into the rest of your day? Marlene says, believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. That's from the Buddha. Yeah, exactly. AC Pasico, I think that's how the Pali term of that is. Yeah, so go ahead and pop into the chat. I will be here again on Tuesday next week. I will not be streaming on social anymore until further notice. There's way too much research about how I'll get into that in some other talk, but not to say I won't be on social. I will be on social, but I will not be streaming and inviting people to, this platform is a lot more in alignment with freedom and not feeding addiction, which the online platforms tend to do. Ask doubt why it's here. Yes, good. All right. We practice faith when we tune into our inner experience, go inside to release, tune in and let in. Yes, Marlene, beautiful. All right, loves, we are 2 minutes over. So thank you for being here. I hope this helps you. I hope this served you. And I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday next week. Yes, Joanne, be well. And if you like, you can take yourself off mute and just say goodbye, if you like.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much. So good
Bye,
to
Aunt
see
Carol. I love
you.
having you
Love
here.
You too. Love you.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, everyone, for being
Mika, if
here.
you just joined, we're just ending. We started an hour ago, 9 a.m. PST. All right, love, I'll be back on Tuesday of next week.
Thank you, Karina. Peace.
Bye, Marlene. Bye, Joanne. Bye, Nick, Manja, Sandra.